Hello everyone and welcome back to the Hammered Corner. With the fantastic response to my cost of living videos both in medieval and Saxon England, today's video will look at the prices of everyday England during the Elizabethan period from 1557 to 1602. Now, the 16th century saw a 30% rise in population growth, newly imported goods from Asia and America, and a change in costs of goods. So let's dive straight into the prices of goods of everyday life during the middle to late 16th century. But just before we get into the video, a big shout out to the first two members of the channel, Chuck and Lucy and Ian Smith. And if you'd like to support the channel, then please do by clicking the join button down below. So let's start with the cost of food in the Elizabethan period. Prices would have differed depending on the year and area of England, but these are rough prices for each. First, we have a loaf of bread that would have cost 2 pence. Oysters would have cost 4 pence per bushel. A quail would have cost half a penny. 200 herrings would have cost 3 shillings. A chicken would have cost 1 pence. Raisins would have been 3 pence per pound. A goose would have cost 4 pence. The best beef would have cost 3 pence per pound. The best mutton would have cost 11 shillings and 2 pence per pound. Sugar would have cost 1 shilling per pound. A bottle of French wine would have cost 2 shillings. A tankard of ale would have cost half a pence. Cloves would have cost 11 shillings per pound. Cinnamon would have cost 10 shillings and 6 pence per pound. And finally, ginger would have cost 3 shillings and 8 pence per pound. Secondly, we have the fines paid by servants for doing things they've done wrong or forgotten to do, some of which seem crazy in today's day and age. Firstly, if a servant missed a prayer, they were fined 2 pence. If they were found cursing or swearing, it would cost them 1 pence per oath or swear word. Not making one's bed would have seen them fined 1 penny. A cook finishing dinner late would have seen them fined 6 pence. And if they were found missing a button on their livery, they were charged 1 pence per button. Now, moving on to the annual pay of the people of the Elizabethan period, we will start from the Queen all the way to the common peasant. So let's start with the nobility and the gentry. Starting at the very top, the Queen would have earned around £60,000 per annum, or in today's money, equates to around £19.1 million. A nobleman would have earned anywhere between £15,000 and £25,000 per annum, or £4.7 to £7.9 million today. Lord Burleigh earned £4,000 a year, or £1.2 million today. A country gentleman earned £50 to £100 per annum, that equates to around £16,000 to £47,000. The Archbishop of Canterbury earned £30,000 per annum, or £9.5 million today. Next, we move away from the nobility and head down to the common town dwellers and their annual income. Starting at the top, we have a very successful merchant who would make anywhere between £100 and £25,000 per annum depending, and that makes him the highest earning common dweller. A skilled labourer would make 8 pence to 12 pence per day. A carpenter would make around 5 shillings per week. An unskilled labourer would make 3 to 4 pence per day. A coney catcher, which is Elizabethan slang for theft through trickery, would have made 14 shillings on a very good day. Now, servants were paid and also received tips, so the prices shown would be before any tips were made. So let's keep it basic. A manservant would earn 1 mark per every 3 months, or £2, 12 shillings and 4 pence a year. A groom would earn 2 marks or less per year. A maid would earn around 5 shillings to 10 shillings every 3 months. A stable boy would make around 10 shillings per quarter. A country parson who is a solo pastor of a small church would earn 20 shillings per year. A field worker would earn 2 to 3 pence per day. A ploughman would earn 1 shilling per week with board, or a place to live whilst he worked. A shepherd was one of the lowest earners and could earn 6 pence per week with board too. And a thatcher would earn 2 shillings for 5 days' work. Not a bad job compared to a shepherd. However, a peasant's income is very difficult to estimate. Some poor cotters who paid their rent in kind might have had an income of around 0, whilst others might make as much as £20 or more per annum. Out of this, however, would come rents, which might be anywhere from an almost non-existent to an almost the entirety of a peasant's cash income. Since he grew most of his food, however, he would rarely starve, even if he had almost no money. Finally, with wages, if you worked as a soldier in the army of Britain, what would you make? Let's start at the very top. A captain would make 6 shillings per day. A lieutenant would make 3 shillings per day. An ensign or an ancient would earn 1 shilling 6 pence per day. A sergeant would also earn 1 shilling and 6 pence per day. A drummer would earn 1 shilling and 6 pence per day. And the common foot soldier would earn around 8 pence per day. Next, let's imagine some of your clothes had more holes than usual and you urgently needed some new clothes and shoes. But what would the cost of clothing be during the 1580s? Well, canvases for livery were 4 pence per yard, and for those who don't know, a livery was a special uniform worn by a servant or an official. Clothing for the Earl of Leicester cost £563 for 7 doublets and 2 cloaks. The cost of broadcloth was £6 for 24 feet. A decent shirt would cost £1. A pair of knitted stockings was 15 shillings. A courtier's breeches cost £7. A good pair of boots would set you back £4 to £10 a pair. Shoes for a child cost 7 pence a pair. The very expensive crimson satin cost 3 shillings a yard. A beaver hat edged in silver was £2. A pair of very fashionable Valencia gloves cost 10 pence. Now velvet was extremely expensive and cost 34 shillings a yard. Spanish leather pumps cost 1 shilling and 6 pence. And finally, a soldier's coat would set them back 6 shillings and 4 pence. Lastly, let's have a look at some of the odds and ends of the 16th century. If you were a smoker and you wanted some tobacco, it would cost you 12 to 64 shillings per pound. A small undecorated book would cost you 6 pence. A large ornamented book would cost you 10 shillings or more. A doctor's visit would cost you 1 mark. Sea coal was 1 shilling per £100. A Nicholas Hilliard miniature cost £40. A typical tip for a servant was 3 to 4 pence. A pair of scissors would have cost around 6 pence. And a post horse from Dover to London would have cost you around 3 shillings. So there we have it. I hope you've enjoyed today's video on the prices of the Elizabethan period. Be sure to let me know down below what you thought of the video and what you'd like to see me cover in the future. Thank you all for your continued support, and as always, keep collecting.